One of the most reviled trailers of all time, leading to one of the most panned movies of all time. Borderlands. One second, my camera's a bit... There we go. So yeah, we had the latest abomination in the trend of video game adaptations. But here's the funny thing. This movie isn't bad for the reasons I and many of you probably expected. I expected this to be woke slop just like a lot of other movies we've been getting. And there's a bit of that, mainly with the casting, and I talked about that in the video I did on the trailer. But this movie isn't even that, which might explain why the critics hated this so much. So, if you don't know, this movie was getting torched by both critics and audiences. I believe at the time of this recording it has a 9% on the tomato meter, and the audiences is hovering around the 50 percentile. And I started thinking, hey, maybe critics finally started hating woke shit again. Same thing happened with American Society of Magical Negroes. Oh, wait. Yeah, if you don't recall, a lot of negative reviews by woke critics that were thrown towards that movie were that it wasn't woke enough. It didn't do enough hating white people. It didn't do enough of just being absolute racist garbage. It didn't do enough of that. And that's why a lot of the woke critics hated it. And this movie seems to be the same thing, where it's just a shitty movie. If it had more woke slop in it like I thought it would, this thing would probably have a 70% at minimum. Because that's what happens unless a movie is really, really divisive. Like Little Mermaid was fucking awful. It was in like the low 60s still, so I don't know what to tell you there. But, and full disclaimer, I've never played the Borderlands games. I've heard mixed things. I've heard some people say they're some of the greatest video games ever. I've heard some people say it's really overhyped and kind of shitty. I don't really know who to believe on that side, and honestly, I don't care. Although I have done a little bit of basic research on Borderlands to know that this is not faithful in the slightest. I mean, there are a couple of references, and there are a shitload of characters that have cameos in this movie, but none of them amount to anything. So, yeah, let's get to the main characters. And I already talked about the shit casting. Cate Blanchett is too old to be Lilith, and they even kind of make fun of that a few times in the movie. And that leads to one of the many cliche lines we've heard several times, or heard many times in the history of film, and many of which show up in this film. Ones such as, I'm too old for this shit, and you and what army? All the shitty cliches that nobody likes anymore. But I digress. Kevin Hart as Roland, first off, nobody's trying in this movie, so nobody's performance is good. Maybe outside of Ariana Greenblatt is trying, but her character is really obnoxious, so there's nothing she can do. But Hart isn't trying, Blanchett isn't trying, Curtis's performance is fucking atrocious, and I don't feel bad about saying that, because she's a fucking human piece of shit. And so is Jack Black, who's annoying as hell as Claptrap. Man, I saw him in the trailers, and I'm like, okay, maybe this can work, but no, not at all. This guy is absolutely annoying. It's like if you crossed R2-D2 with the creature from Black Cauldron. Or no, it's if you want to go to Star Wars references, is if you combined R2-D2 with Jar Jar Binks. That would still be more tolerable than what Jack Black is doing here. There's a lot of action in this movie to try to pad out the running time, it seems. Like, none of this action amounts to shit. And most of it's pretty bad. The shot composition isn't great. Hell, there are times where you cannot see a damn thing on screen. Sometimes because there's, like, a fight going on in the dark, so there's a couple shots where it is, like, pitch dark, and the only thing illuminating anything is the muzzle flashes from the gun. Same problem I had with that one scene in The Batman. Everybody said that was such a good scene. It's like, no, it's an action scene. I want to be able to see what's going on. And the editing doesn't help because, especially with a lot of the hand-to-hand scenes, it is glaringly obvious this editing is trying to cover up the fact that these actors are too old to be doing any of these stunts, so they obviously have stunt doubles, and the camera isn't hiding the fact that they're using stunt doubles, it's just making it glaringly obvious you're trying to hide the fact that you're using stunt doubles. And I guess I didn't talk about the big dude, Krieg. He's probably the only tolerable character in this, because he barely has any lines. And again, I briefly talked about Roland. He's supposed to be a big masculine guy in the games, from what I understand, and you casted Kevin Hart? Really? The guy who's afraid of fucking dolphins in real life? That's who you casted in this role? And again, he at least tries to play it straight, which is something I was worried about. I'm like, oh, he's the masculine type, but they're going to turn him into a fucking clown. And there are jokes, and there are, of course, height jokes about him, because, God forbid, they come up with something original to mock Kevin Hart about. But either way, they really do kind of turn him into a punchline, but at least he tries to play it straight. But again, he's clearly not giving a shit. His expression, he's literally, like, pointing a gun at Lilith, about, like, contemplating whether or not to shoot her, and his expression is kind of just, like, looking like this, almost like he's looking at his paycheck off screen, so he's just like, okay, just gotta get through it, and that check is mine. And there's a lot of other characters here. There's this one chick who runs this little, like, army or something that's constantly chasing Roland. Again, it doesn't amount to shit, and the action sequences are pretty bad. Especially the green screen work. Every once in a while, the CGI looks fine. Like, the environments, or not necessarily the environments, but, like, the ships, or that they're flying and everything, those will look fine. But the green screen work, this scene in particular, look atrocious. And in the finale, which makes no goddamn sense, by the way, the effects are terrible, and the plot makes no sense. I'm not gonna go into spoilers because, well, I'll go into a few, I guess, but it's really not worth it because no one's gonna want to see this. No one wants to see this movie. This movie has tanked at the box office already. This weekend, worldwide, it made $10 million. Domestically, it made about 8.8 million or something. And to put that into perspective, Deadpool and Wolverine in its third weekend pulled in another 54 million and broke $1 billion at the box office this past weekend. And looking at the Sunday numbers, this movie dropped all the way to 6th place behind Deadpool and Wolverine. It Ends With Us. Third place was... What the hell was third place? I don't remember what third place was, and then 5th place was The Trap, which is doing terribly, but even still, that's in its second week of release. Number 4, first just Sunday, was Despicable Me 4, which has been out for about 6 weeks at this point. And even worse, it made, just yesterday, it made about $380,000 more than Inside Out 2 did, which has been out for almost 2 months. This is a catastrophic failure, and it is 100% deserved. Again, nothing with this plot makes sense. The ending is surprisingly a rip-on of all things Dark Phoenix, because if you want to rip off X-Men, you might as well rip off from the worst one. And the villain is taken out by something never explained, or if it was, I just wasn't paying attention anymore. Some weird tentacles that come up in the middle of this vault that they're all going for, and it just kind of shows up and just kills him. Yeah, our leads don't even actually defeat the villain. There's, of course, a stupid fake-out death with Roland, who comes back and does fuck all in the final battle. And again, Lilith is some... I don't know what to call her. Is it a siren? Is that what she's called? And she, like I said, it kind of rips on Dark Phoenix because it has those stupid... She has, like, Firebird wings and everything. It's so dumb. Oh my god, I can't even... And there's even some basic continuity errors where... Okay, so you remember the stupid-ass scene from the trailer where they have where Tina has the window open and piss flies in through the window? Yeah, it's still not funny here, obviously. In fact, it's probably even less funny here. But the window is magically up a few seconds later. She never rolls the window back up. It's just magically back up when they get attacked by whatever the fuck the big monster thing was. It started with an S. It was like I want to say sturgeon. That doesn't sound right, though. I don't remember what it was. Again, I don't play Borderlands, and I did a quick wiki search, so so I didn't really have much information going into this. But yeah, actors who don't give a shit or are just straight up awful in Curtis's case. Stupid cameos from characters that will never have an effect on the story. A story that makes no goddamn sense. CGI that wouldn't look out of place in a fan film. Action sequences that are boring, especially since you don't care about anybody involved. Editing that makes the mousetrap almost look good. Almost. This isn't as bad as the mousetrap. And just pure boredom. Honestly, I would rather this movie have been an insane, woke shit show. That way I could have been angry at this. This movie is just so boring and forgettable that I will have forgotten about this within a few days. Hell, maybe by tomorrow I'll have forgotten every single thing about this movie. This isn't the worst video game adaptation because it's not insanely bad enough to be. It's just slow and boring and not funny and kind of annoying in some places. Mortal Kombat, Annihilation was straight up awful in every sense. So was the Halo TV show. I've seen people say that the Halo TV show is worse, and I'd probably agree with them. And hell, I'd say this would probably be better than a Mortal Kombat reboot, but they're kind of on equal footing here, because I really hated that movie. And this is an age where we still can't get very many good video game adaptations. Like, we got Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was good, and the Super Mario Brothers movie was good, but we're still getting shit like Halo and Uncharted and that god-awful Resident Evil Netflix show. So, this movie's still getting an F, but again, surprisingly, not for the reasons you think, or you would have thought before this video. So that's all I got, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.